Hey guys, sending you guys this video to get ready for some of the fall in-station training that you guys are going to be doing coming up here. I want to start off by saying thank you for volunteering to do this again. If you're getting this stuff and you're confused by it or you don't think you can do it, let me know so I can find somebody else to fill your shoes. But I just want to send a quick video out because this year's going to be a little different. Again, some of the three things that us at Peer Support are trying to do is increase education awareness and resources. This is a big part of the education and awareness part. It was a big help last year when you guys went out there and talked to everybody, and we had a lot of good feedback from that. We had a lot of people reach out for help. We're trying to continue that this year. As I stated in the email that I sent you guys earlier, I hope you guys read those 2 chapters in Dr. Gilmartin's book. We're going to go over the definition of hypervigilance and kind of what it looks like and why it's important. And of course, it's 2 chapters. You guys only have about 45, 50 minutes with each crew. So obviously, I don't expect you guys to get into the weeds on this stuff. I'm hoping that this video and the stuff I send you guys, and hopefully you have the book, you can kind of review it and decide how you want to present it. I'm going to give you kind of my idea as to what points to hit, hopefully, and then we'll go from there. I'm hoping that you also start your conversations off with them, just making sure that they're aware that we don't use MHN anymore. We're with concern, and maybe have a cheat sheet on what those benefits are with concern. They're pretty similar to what MHN gave us. There's obviously a different phone number and and we get a few more visits and that kind of stuff. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. And if people have things that they want to talk about, or if you ask questions like, hey, how's it been going? And they have things that they want to express and get off their chest, let them run with it. But as you guys know, that most times when you go to these things and do tabletop discussions, they just stare at you and kind of are waiting for it to be done. So I'm trying to give them give you guys some curriculum to make it a little bit more interesting. Hopefully it grabs some of them and they run with it. Okay, so let's get into it because I don't want to take up too much of your time with this video, and we'll go from there. One of the things obviously when you're talking about some of this stuff and reading a book and the information in the book, you have to make it relatable to the people that are there. I would start with some questions. Easy ones are, and they can be rhetorical. They don't have to answer them, but do you guys feel like you view the world differently since you became a firefighter? Do you look at society differently now that you become a firefighter? Do you look at certain situations differently now that you become a firefighter? Like if you went to the Taylor Swift concert and you're at Golden One Center with thousands of people, do you wonder how to get out of there if things go to hell? Most firefighters do. They're looking for exits. They, are looking for a way out potentially and that kind of stuff. So that's something to just grab their attention. I'm going to send you guys some of the stuff I'm referring to over here, along with the graphs. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the graphs with you guys yet, because to print out enough for everybody, that's 600 people, 650 people. I don't know that I can justify the cost of that, but I may just print out enough for you guys that are laminated so you can show them what they look like. Anyway, we'll get into some of that stuff. So with that stuff, then you can get into kind of what hypervigilance is. So Dr. Gilmartin talks about this stuff in his book. It's written by a cop. He's an ex-cop, for cops, but it is very relevant to first responders. He presented at the Peer Support Conference last October, and that had all sorts of first responders. Military, EMS, fire, and law were all there. So it's very relevant to what we do. I would start off with the definition, and I would just read it from the stuff that I'm going to send you guys. Hypervigilance is the necessary manner of viewing the world from a threat-based perspective and having the mindset to see the events unfolding as potentially hazardous. So if you go back to the Taylor Swift concert and having a way of looking at that scenario where you're trying to enjoy the concert, but also wondering what happens if somebody comes in and starts shooting, or there's a fire, or any of those kind of things. Those things that kind of pop in your head. That's hypervigilance. That's the kind of stuff that we need as firefighters to survive at our job. And we've been, whether we're at a busy station or not, we all started through the academy, through probation, busy stations, and so all that training from zero till if we're older, we got to a slower station, doesn't matter. We've all been trained to be hyper vigilant so we can perform our jobs at in the best capacity that we know how. Getting our gear on the rig, tones go off, what is it, where are we going, all that kind of stuff. So Our bodies have been trained to do that. It's necessary for us to do our job, and then we also build a pretty good bond with the crews that we have because we're all kind of trained that way. We're working with like-minded individuals that have all been trained the same way, that see the world pretty similarly. We might have similar societal views or views on, God forbid, politics or any of that kind of stuff. But we all kind of get along a little bit because we've all gone through similar stuff, if not the same stuff, with the same crew. So that hypervigilance bonds us. So getting into some of this stuff, most people in the world live within a normal range of risk. Okay, that's where this first graph would come into play. And it's just a way to visualize what it is. Okay, it's a normal range of risk, and somebody who lives works in a business office, gets in his car, drives through Rancho Cordova. Well, that's maybe Folsom. And there's a normal range of risk. You might get in a car wreck. Somebody might jump out in front of you, but it's pretty low. It doesn't happen. Well, if it's in Rancho, it doesn't happen very often. But if it's in Folsom, maybe it happens rarely. But those are the kind of things. Just normal everyday life. Not a lot happens. Second graph is going to be shows us on duty, and it spikes. We go past that normal range of risk. That's us being hypervigilant. That's us being ready for whatever. Tones go off. We don't know what we're going to. Even if it's a vehicle accident, you still really don't know where you're going at. Our lines down, all that kind of stuff. So we've been trained to be hypervigilant. So we're always looking at potentially the worst case scenario. Keeps us, that hypervigilance, which you may want to stress with them, is what keeps us alive. It keeps us, our heads on a swivel, and helps. We constantly are looking for, we're sizing up scenes and people and all those kinds of things. We need it for our job. On the graph, it kind of gives a description of being alive, alert, energetic, involved, humorous. Again, that's where that dark humor kind of comes into play, and it helps us enjoy work a little bit and also stay alive. Now, since it spikes, it's just like everything else in the world. There's always an opposite and equal opposite reaction, and it's going to plummet. Okay, so that's where we come home. Once we come home, there is no reason for hypervigilance, and we go past the whole normal range of risk, and now we're home. So now we're home, and you feel tired, detached, don't want to do anything, don't want to make any decisions at home because you made all these decisions at work. You're constantly evaluating things, and you don't want to evaluate things at home, but your spouse and kids haven't seen you, or your significant other kids maybe haven't seen you, and they want to ask you questions and do things, and that's when we get tired and pissed off and irritable and want to just be left alone and that kind of stuff. So it spikes back down. Now, normally, if we have a situation where we're being hypervigilant and we were to come home and relax and recuperate, the body will automatically recover. Problem is, it takes 18 to 24 hours. Well, most of us are working overtime or mandatories, and after the 24 hours, you can see how the time crunch here can affect things for us and our families. You recover after those 24 hours, but during those 24 hours, you were kind of an asshole, and now you're arguing with your wife or problems with your kids, and they're not happy and all that stuff. So now you're dealing with that stuff for the rest of whatever's left of your 4-day, and then you go back to work and you feel great again because you're back to being hypervigilant, feel alive, feel like I'm conquer the world, I'm going to take care of things. I know my job. I don't have to deal with anybody else's stuff, and I feel great. But obviously, there's a way for the body to recover. We just don't get into that mode very often. So, what most of us get into are the hypervigilance roller coaster. Where, at work, down, at home. Then you go back to work, and then down. And it just constantly goes over and over again. So as you're describing this to the people there, show them the graph, and it should resonate with them, because I think most of us get stuck in that roller coaster where we go to work, I feel great, I feel good, I'm taking care of myself, but whenever I go home, it's just a pain in the ass. It's dirty house, it's food, it's kids, it's all this other stuff, And part of the problem is that it's a biological response. We have a biological response to the hypervigilance recovery. So you're hypervigilant, it's not psychological or anything like that. Your body is prepared for danger. So then when you go home, it's got to recover, but you also have to live with people that you haven't seen for 2, 3 days, 4 days maybe, and they don't really understand it. So then you start blaming home, or whoever's home, for the tiredness and the feeling isolated and just in a bad mood and angry and all that stuff. So, but then you just grind through it, and then you go back to work, you feel better again. Because you're back at work. You're not having to deal with the things at home. So here's where this gets, here's the teaching part. It's easy to see on the graph. Here's the teaching part of it. The members and the spouses need to understand this is how our bodies work biologically. This is why we give everybody the book, Dr. Gilmartin's book, to read. So in the hopes that they read it and understand that, okay, when he comes home or she comes home from work after however long they've been gone and they're in a pissy mood, maybe they just need to recover. So it's an understanding, it's an awareness, it's some education for all of us. Hopefully they take this stuff home. There was a retired battalion chief who we went over this in a quarterly training about a year and a half ago, who was like, why the hell didn't we learn about this when I was working? It makes so much more sense, because even if you're at a slow station, you're still trained to be hypervigilant. So when you go home, the recovery time might be shorter because maybe you don't run as many calls, but you're still having to recover. It's an awareness part for the members and their spouses. A lot of us go home and we're tired. We don't want to do stuff. We try and work out, or we try and go take care of errands and stuff like that, but we're exhausted. One of the things to talk about, and these are notes that I'll send to you guys, is that like when we go home, a lot of times we're tired or there's exhaustion, and it might not be enough for a nap because you want to get things done, but you're just kind of in a malaise, you're tired. That's the body's response to recovering from the hypervigilance. Since it's a biological response to being hypervigilant and trying to recover from that, it's like fighting a cold. You don't do much when you're fighting a cold. You feel like crap, but your body's fighting the cold, so you're tired. It's the same kind of thing. And there's no real need to get into the minutia of the biology on why it is that way or how it works. I think if you just tell the members that you're at that it's a biological response, and this is what happens, that should be good. If you get guys that want to know more information about this stuff, tell them I'll send them a book. The book has all the details and all that kind of stuff in there. And tell them if they graduated from an academy in the last 5-6 years, find their book, because they have one. We've been handing them out for free for the last 5 or 6 years. There is a way to potentially recover a little faster. It's with some exercise. Dr. Gilmartin talks about aerobic exercise, 30 to 40 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. If you can get that in, great, but I think some is better than none. But with this last graph, it does show that if you can get a good workout in and kind of reset the body, you can recover a little bit faster. So that is something to be aware of. If you're always in that roller coaster and you're always at the bottom, things just start to deteriorate. An interesting thing that he talks about is that if a clinician were to see you at the bottom of that roller coaster, you could they could potentially diagnose you with depression. The problem with that is when you go to work, you feel great and you perform and you get your stuff on the rig and you do everything right and you feel fine. That's not depression. Depression doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. You feel depressed regardless. There's symptoms of what hypervigilance looks like. Go over those. Make sure that they clearly, or that they're not all of those. There could be one or some, because one of them there is infidelity. Everybody, obviously, I think we all suffer from some hypervigilance and being on the roller coaster from time to time, but we're not all unfaithful. So pretty obvious. And then end with some ways on how to avoid it or how to handle it. Make sure that, education and awareness is the big key, not only for them, but for their spouse. Some coping skills, exercise, sleep, basically an understanding with whoever they're living with that there may be some recovery time on day one whenever they get home, and continue finding ways, continuing to learn what it looks like for them to be struggling and what the best ways are for them to recover. Okay, that's it. Kind of a longer video than I wanted. Hopefully when I edit this, it's not quite as long as the recording is. But if you guys have questions, please let me know. I really do appreciate you guys doing this. I hope this works out. It'd be nice if this works out, because the more information we get out there with different faces, the better. But we'll see. If it doesn't work out, we'll do something different next year. All right. Thanks.